The brain box, the spot to get you hot, motivated, educated, money generated. The brain box, place to take you higher, get you inspired, keep you lifted, show you gifted. The brain box, place to take you higher, get you inspired, keep you lifted, show you gifted. The brain box, motivated, educated, money generated. The brain box. The brain box. What up? It's me, Magi Love of Get Lifted Entertainment, with another episode of The Brain Box. As always, thank you for supporting The Brain Box and Get Lifted Entertainment. I appreciate those who continue to subscribe, like, share, along with sharing the different episodes on the social media platforms outside of YouTube. Like always, if you're not doing so already, please make sure you follow The Brain Box. The Brain Box with 2 X's on Instagram. Follow Get Lifted Entertainment on Instagram. And if you are a person that tweets, make sure you follow Get Lifted ENT on Twitter, as well as The Brain Box on Twitter with 3 X's on Twitter. So, I've talked a lot about, marketing yourself. I've talked about ISRC codes. I've talked about song split sheets. I've talked about public performance rights. Organizations that collect on those public performance royalties. And so today I wanted to talk about, there are 5 different royalties that I want to speak on today. There are more royalty aspects out there when it comes to the music industry, but I definitely want to talk about these 5. I feel like these are pretty important because these are, to me, it seems, the top 5 royalties that are pretty much dispersed as far as when it comes to music. So obviously the payment of these royalties, they go to recording artists, songwriters, composers, publishers, and other copyright holders for the right to use basically your work. And when it comes to this, there are certain laws in the US. You have to follow certain US copyright laws in regards to giving artists their exclusive rights to their work. So this falls in line with the 5 type of royalties that I'll speak about today: mechanical royalties, public performance royalties, as well as sync royalties, print music royalties, believe it or not, and then the digital royalties. So when it comes to the different type of royalties, they're generated based on the way your music is pretty much used. And so, like I said, there's a variation of royalties, and this is all comes down to, is it mechanical? Is it public performance? Did you get a sync royalty? Did you get your music printed out? Therefore, you get a print music royalty, and so on and so on. So the first one I want to talk about today is the mechanical royalties. Mechanical royalties, they're usually generated by the physical or digital reproduction of your work. And that means you may have had your music formatted in such a way as vinyl, CD. I know cassettes are obsolete nowadays, but that was also a way where mechanical royalties were collected. Digital downloads, streaming services is another aspect of collecting mechanical royalties. So, for example, a record label pays a mechanical royalty to a songwriter for every time that they press a CD of their music. The same would go for if you decided that you wanted to go vinyl or a digital download. And digital downloads are great for individuals as well that have their own websites, because you can set up a music page or a music tab on your website, and those digital downloads can be downloaded directly from your particular site. And then, of course, your streaming services like Tidal, Apple Music, Spotify, Deezer, and the other streaming services that are out there. Now, as far as your mechanical royalties, those are not paid out by the PRO, the Performing Rights Organization. Those are not paid out. The only thing that paid out through them basically are your public performance royalties. So you would pretty much collect your mechanical royalties through the Harry Fox Agency or Song Trust. Song Trust is very, very popular in regards to collecting the mechanical royalties. So that's pretty much the gist of mechanical royalties. Like I said, it applies when your music is formatted in such a way of vinyl, CDs, digital downloads, streamings. And so people really feel like CDs don't have a role these days when it comes to earning monies for your music, but CDs play a large role in developing your brand and who you are as an artist, as well as obviously collecting mechanical royalties. You just have to understand and know where to market yourself when it comes to the CD aspect of things. I've even seen artists convert their music still to this day into vinyl, which I think is pretty dope. To still get your music in such a way where it's vinyl, because when it's all said and done, everything comes back around, and I wouldn't be surprised if people just start going out and searching and looking for record players, or may even have a family member or relative that has a record player still. And how dope would that be to be able to put your music on vinyl and have it played on a record player and use that for content, for photos, for videos? I think that's pretty dope, especially this day and age, because people really think it's obsolete. But that would be a great a piece of content to use for branding and marketing on social media. The second royalty that I want to speak about, which I did speak on this in my previous episode, is public performance royalties. These are pretty much generated for your work that's recorded and played or streamed in public places that music is played, such as sports arenas, hospitals, airports, AM, FM radio, live concerts, if you perform, anywhere else where music is played in the public, bars, TVs, commercials. This is where you would collect your public performance royalties, and these are paid through the BMI, ASCAP organizations. And if you're in another country, then obviously you want to look into your PRO that's specific for your country, and be sure to sign up and register your music. That way you are getting your public performance royalties paid to you quarterly, and to those who are a part of the songs that are put out there. If you've had more than one producer, more than one songwriter, more than one recording artist, you want to make sure you fill out those split sheets, as I've talked about that in one of the previous episodes as well. So, like I said, PROs are the performance rights organizations. Here in the U.S., it's BMI, ASCAP, SESIC. They negotiate license for public performances and tracks for their usage, and therefore that information is collected and reported back to the PRO for you to receive your public performance royalties. So I'm just gonna move this right along. Then you have your synchronization royalties, which is, short, we can say sync royalties. These are pretty much generated for copywritten music paired and synced with visual media. You get your sync licenses, they allow the rights to use your copyrighted music. And this pretty much where you get placements with film, television, commercials, video games, video games, video games, video games. I know that people think it's totally impossible to get your song placed on a video game. However, it's not really a hard thing to do if you are contacting the right people, have the proper music specific for that particular game. I know there are a few independent artists that have since had their music placed on video games, which I think is pretty dope. I know Mark Steele has had, Toby has had his music, and there's a few other artists out there that have had their music placed on video games. I know Jay Nolan from Atlanta is an independent artist. He's had his music placed on television shows, which I feel like is pretty dope. So again, those syncing royalties come from having your music placed on basically visual media. And again, that's with films, television, commercials, video games, online streaming, advertisement, and any other type of visual media. So when it comes to the synchronization license, it does not include the right to use an existing record with audiovisual media. A license will also need to have a master use license before you can use the music with a new audiovisual project. And that's an agreement between the person who owns the masters of the record or the label that owns the masters of the label. So again, that's the gist of your syncing license, and those are paid through ASCAP and BMI. Those are pretty much collected and paid out to the songwriters and the publishers. And so the songwriter also receives a mechanical royalty if there's any type of physical or digital sales on a particular soundtrack as well. So just keep that in mind. Moving right along on the brain box, we're going to talk about your print music royalties. And this is not all that common because a lot of people don't really get their music printed out on sheets of music nowadays, but this is typically a royalty that applies to music that's been transcribed and printed out on a sheet of music and then dispersed. And usually you're paid out on this. The fee that pays out is often based on the number of copies that were made and printed for use. And from my research, you can pretty much get this through a print music publisher. I see here they have Alfred Music and also Hal Leonard, and these are two print music publishers where you could go through as far as getting your music transcribed and distributed on the sheets of music. And like I said, your payment will be based on the number of copies that were made for printing and for usage in regards to the print music royalties. And like I said, this is one of the least common forms of royalties that's paid out, but it still exists. So, maybe you might want to look into taking advantage of that. It's another stream of income. Last but not least, digital royalties. Digital royalties is a big one that should be on your list because these are the royalties that come from like Sirius XM, any type of cable network music station like Music Choice, also cable TV radio stations as well that exist, and that's kind of where Music Choice falls up under. But these are the royalties that are collected for any type of music that's played on a non-interactive streaming site. And non-interactive means that someone did not click to specifically hear your song. So services like Pandora and, like I said, satellite radio or cable TV radio stations, those are considered non-active, versus your interactive would be your streaming sites such as Spotify, Tidal, Apple Music, uh, Deezer, and any other basically streaming platform that you would go to a specific artist and click on the specific song that you want to hear. Those are pretty much paid out through your PRO, versus the digital royalties are paid out through Sound Exchange. So, as I was speaking on this in one of the previous episodes, that's why it's important to be registered with not only PRO, but also to be registered with Sound Exchange, because your non-interactive streaming activity, those are considered digital royalties, and those are paid out by Sound Exchange. So that's, again, another avenue of revenue that you could be missing out on if you didn't understand the differences of the royalties and who pays out what. So make sure that you get yourself registered with your PRO, as well as going to soundexchange.com and getting registered with them, and making sure, again, you fill out those song split sheets with the proper artist legal names, percentages of splits, and things of that nature for ownership. That way, when you log on and you register the songs, everyone that's entitled to a portion of this digital royalty, they will receive that. It's also important to note that the digital performance royalties for sound recordings aren't really related to publishing rights, so no portion of this royalty is owned to the publisher or songwriters. And that is why you need to sign up for a PRO, because that's how your songwriter and your publisher, they're paid out through the public performance royalties versus the digital royalties here that we're talking about now. So when it comes to the digital royalties, the payout is a little bit different than your public performance royalties, which is usually split 50-50 if it's just two people involved. When it comes to the royalties for the digital side of things, the royalties are divided basically like 45% of performance royalties are paid directly to the featured artist on the recording, and then it's 5% is paid out to fund for a non-featured artist, and then the other 50% of the performance royalties are paid to the rights of the owner who owns the sound recording, basically. And so I hope that the breakdown of these particular royalties help you understand the different streams of revenue that you could be capitalizing on in the music industry. And if you have any further questions, please be sure to contact me on getliftedertainment.com. You can also send me a message on Get Lifted Entertainment's Instagram, or the Brain Box with 2 X's on Instagram. And as always, I'll do my very best to my knowledge to get you the answers to your questions. If you have a question that you just want to leave in the comments on the video, please do so. I'll respond back to you as soon as I can, again, to the best of my ability with the knowledge that I have. And if you have any further questions where you want to get a little bit more depth into the royalties, or just any other questions regarding PROs, song split sheets, ISRC codes, again, I'm here to help you. And I thank you for tuning in to the Brain Box. I hope that you share this information with someone else if you already know this information for yourself, because there are many artists out there who are developing who really don't have a clue of the business side of things. And so I just want to continue to share as much information as I possibly can to help those get started and get that revenue going for yourself. Once again, I thank you for tuning in, and you guys, I'll see you next time.